Hi, my name is Erica, and today I'll be talking about zoos. And zoos are like a main thing. Parents take like little kids on family vacations and stuff to see all the cool animals and have a fun time. But is it really fun for the animals? My main claim is zoos harm the animals they hold captive. And my three secondary claims are animals suffer behavioral issues living in captivity, they die prematurely in zoos, and zoos kill what they consider surplus animals. My first claim is animals suffer behavioral issues living in captivities, and Professor Winrich, a primatologist in 2018, said they begin to develop neurosis, which is a relatively mild mental illness that is not caused by organic diseases. This is like stress, depression, anxiety. And they develop these because they're not allowed to engage in their natural instincts, which is to hunt and like socialize with other individuals. So they have to substitute what they're going to do all day long, and this is more apparent in higher intelligence animals like primates. And so, for example, primates will pull out their own hair so they have patches and bald spots. And you hear the story about them like throwing feces in zoos. That's actually not something they find in the wild. They do these actions because they are bored and they have nothing to do. Pacing is a common stereotype among big cats in zoos. They tend to pace back and forth as a way of coping with the stress of captivities, much like inmates pace back and forth in their cell like all day long. My second claim is animals die prematurely in zoos. And so animals are, majority of them are not fed their natural diet. For instance, zookeepers might feed primates Roman leaves, which is not actually found where they currently live in the wild. So since they're not eating their wild foods and they're given things that have a lot of salt and sugar, they succumb easily to diseases that they wouldn't in wild, such as diabetes. They can become overweight, have high blood pressure, and heart disease. And these diseases are only found in captive monkeys and not in the wild. A survey done of all association of zoos and aquariums that have primates in their collection show a 30% of responding institutions report at least one diabetic primate in their current collection. And this is not found in the wild. They usually they have places for activity, so they don't have obesity, and their foods are a lot healthier and what their stomach and body is able to digest. And my third claim is zoos kill what they consider surplus animals. This is any animal that doesn't fit into the zoo's breeding program. They consider them surplus. They're an extra animal that they don't need, so they end up killing them. They can also be animals that the zoo no longer finds profitable. So like a little lion cub brings in a lot of visitors, but when they're older, like a year or two, they don't bring in as many. So zoos will sometimes kill them because they're taking up space and they need to save money. And they'll just end up replacing them with newer and younger ones, which they will end up killing later. And since zoos are not responsible for lifetime care of animals, they can get rid of animals that don't bring in any profit and or considered not useful. And then on January 9th, 2018, outrage sparked over the killing of 2 lion cubs in a Swedish zoo. That zoo has reportedly killed 9 healthy lion cubs over the last 6 years because they were considered surplus animals. They killed these cubs because they could not be sold or moved, and because they became too big and they caused aggression among the pack of the lions, so they ended up killing them. In conclusion, zoos harm the animals that they're supposed to be actually saving and helping. Thank you.
Okay. The propositions labeled, there's a reasonable preview of what the supporting points are going to be, although you don't really number those points at the beginning in the preview, so I thought that those were going to be the supporting points. Turned out that they were, so that worked out well, but I think you could be a little bit clearer at the beginning. When you cite the information in the body of the speech as you get to the individual points, you do have a clear label on those individual points. There's a lot of description of things that you claim that happen in zoos that I don't get as much evidence on as I thought I was going to be getting. We got a generic quote from the one researcher at the beginning that talked about animal behavior and neurosis, and then everything else in that point seemed to be mostly descriptive of what somebody thinks is going on. I don't know that we have any particular cases. We don't have any statistical data on that. On the medical issues, we got a couple of pieces of statistical data on that. The diabetic primates, for instance, I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know how significant the diabetes is. If it's managed in the zoo, then I'm not sure how big a problem it is. But that there are all these other issues that get listed, you need some more data on that. The diabetic thing was the only thing that I really heard any clear information on. Everything else seems like it's kind of a presupposition of the argument. And then on the third point, everything was asserted up until the point when you mentioned the lion cubs at the Swedish Zoo. And so that's the one example that you have here, and that's a pretty broad stroke to be painting all the zoos with based on that one experience. I'm sure that you've got some other information that makes it a little bit more generalizable, but it doesn't seem like it got into the presentation, so you need to be a little careful. I get the feeling sometimes that you're emphasizing the descriptive stuff to provoke, like the persuasive response instead of finding the testimony of experts or statistical data or examples to make a more substantive and generalizable argument. And that's where I'm going to leave it for now. Thank you.